The champagne disaster. Emma Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she directed her catering staff through the back entrance of the Fontainebleau Hotel. The annual Miami Children's Charity Gala was her biggest event yet, and everything had to be perfect. Her truck, loaded with 300 servings of gourmet appetizers, was parked in the loading zone, exactly where event management had told her to stop. "Jessica, make sure the crab cakes stay at exactly 165 degrees," Emma called to her best friend and assistant. Mrs. Patterson specifically requested them crispy, not soggy. Jessica gave her a thumbs up while balancing 3 trays. "Got it, boss. You worry too much. This is going to be amazing." Emma allowed herself a small smile. 5 years ago, she had been working 3 jobs just to keep her tiny catering business afloat. Now, Rodriguez Events was the most requested catering company in Miami. She had built this empire from nothing, and she was proud of every single client she had earned through hard work and talent. The sound of an expensive car horn shattered her moment of satisfaction. "Excuse me," a sharp male voice called out. "You're blocking the entrance." Emma turned to see a sleek black Bentley idling behind her catering truck. A tall man in an obviously expensive tuxedo was leaning out the window, his expression radiating impatience. "I'm in the loading zone," Emma replied calmly, pointing to the sign above her. "Event catering has priority access until 7 o'clock. Do you have any idea who I am?" The man stepped out of his car, and Emma had to admit he was handsome in that polished, too perfect way that usually meant trouble. Dark hair, sharp jawline, and eyes that probably expected everyone to jump when he snapped his fingers. "I don't care if you're the president," Emma said firmly. "I have a contract that gives me this space for another 20 minutes. You'll have to wait or use the main entrance." The man's expression darkened. He pulled out his phone, clearly preparing to call someone who would make Emma's life difficult. But before he could dial, an elegant older woman emerged from the Bentley's back seat. She was wearing a cream-colored gown that probably cost more than Emma's truck, and her silver hair was arranged in a style that screamed old money and high society. Her gaze swept over Emma's catering uniform with barely concealed disdain. "Blake, what's the delay?" the woman asked, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from a lifetime of being obeyed. "This woman refuses to move her vehicle, Mother," Blake replied, gesturing at Emma like she was an annoying obstacle rather than a person. Emma felt her temper rising, but kept her voice professional. "Ma'am, I'm the event caterer. I have every right to be here during my designated loading time. Your son can easily use the main entrance." The woman, Blake's mother apparently, looked at Emma as if she had just suggested something completely absurd. "Young lady, do you understand that my family donated $500,000 to this charity? We don't use side entrances like common guests." "Then perhaps you should have arrived during guest arrival time instead of during vendor setup," Emma replied, crossing her arms. She had dealt with entitled clients before, but this woman was setting new records for arrogance. Blake stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "Listen, I don't have time for this. I'm already late for my speech. Move your truck now, or I'll have it towed." "You'll have it towed?" Emma laughed without humor. "Go ahead and try. I'd love to see you explain to the charity organizers why you had their caterer removed right before service begins." For a moment, Blake looked like he was seriously considering doing exactly that. But then his mother placed a hand on his arm. "Blake, let's just go through the main entrance," she said, though her eyes remained fixed on Emma with cold disapproval. "We can address this person's rudeness with the event management later." As Blake moved back toward his car, Emma turned to supervise the unloading of another tray. That's when Jessica, rushing to help, accidentally bumped into the champagne tower Emma's team had just set up on a serving cart. Everything happened in slow motion. The crystal glasses tipped, champagne cascading down like an expensive waterfall. Emma lunged forward to catch the falling tower, but it was too late. The champagne splashed across the concrete and directly onto Blake's mother's cream-colored gown. The woman gasped, stepping back in shock as the golden liquid soaked into the delicate fabric. Blake rushed to his mother's side, his expression transforming from annoyance to fury. "You clumsy fool!" Blake's mother shrieked, staring at her ruined gown. This dress is worth more than you make in a year. It was an accident, Emma said quickly, grabbing napkins from her cart. Please, let me help clean that up. We can get the stain out if we act fast. Don't touch me. The woman slapped Emma's hand away. You've done enough damage, you incompetent girl. Blake, call security immediately. I want this woman and her entire company banned from this hotel. Standing her ground, Emma felt her face flush with humiliation as other vendors and early arriving guests began to gather, watching the scene unfold. This was a disaster. One accident, one moment of bad luck, and her reputation could be destroyed. Ma'am, I sincerely apologize, Emma said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. The champagne tower was secured properly. My assistant accidentally bumped it while trying to avoid your son's car. This was truly an accident, and I take full responsibility. Responsibility? Blake stepped forward, his voice dripping with contempt. Do you have any idea what you just done? That gown is vintage Oscar de la Renta. It's irreplaceable. Then perhaps your mother shouldn't wear irreplaceable gowns to events where accidents can happen, Emma replied, her own temper finally breaking through her professional exterior. I said I was sorry. I'll pay for the cleaning or replacement. But I will not stand here and be treated like I'm worthless just because I don't have a trust fund. Blake's eyes widened, clearly in use to anyone talking back to him. Who do you think you are? I'm the person who's been working since I was 15 to build something from nothing, Emma said, lifting her chin. I'm the person who employs 12 people and helps them feed their families. I'm the person who earned her place at this event through talent and hard work, not because Daddy wrote a check. How dare you? Blake's mother looked like she might actually faint from the shock of being spoken to so directly. Blake, I want this trashy little nobody removed immediately. Call Donald. Tell him we're withdrawing our donation unless this woman is fired. Catherine, that seems a bit extreme. Everyone turned to see an elderly woman approaching the scene. She was smaller than Blake's mother, but something about her presence commanded attention. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent, and she was looking at Emma with interest rather than disdain. Grandmother, Blake said, his tone becoming more respectful. This woman just ruined Mother's dress and has been incredibly disrespectful. I saw the whole thing from my car, the elderly woman said calmly. Your driver was blocking the loading zone. This young lady was following protocol. The champagne spill was an accident that happened because everyone was rushing around your unnecessary drama. Blake looked uncomfortable. His mother, Catherine, opened her mouth to protest, but the grandmother held up her hand. Catherine, go inside and have a hotel staff help you with your dress. Blake, park your car in a main lot like everyone else. I'd like to speak with this young woman privately. Catherine looked like she wanted to argue, but something about the elderly woman's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. With a final glare at Emma, she swept into the hotel, leaving a trail of champagne drops behind her. Blake hesitated, looking between his grandmother and Emma. Grandmother, I don't think it's appropriate for you to engage with someone who just disrespected our family. Blake Harrison, I've been dealing with disrespect since before you were born, his grandmother replied tartly. This young woman defended herself against bullying. That's not disrespect. That's dignity. Now go park your car. After Blake reluctantly left, the elderly woman turned to Emma with a warm smile that completely transformed her face. I'm Grace Mitchell, she said, extending her hand. Blake's grandmother on his father's side. And you are? Emma Rodriguez, Emma replied, shaking her hand cautiously. Mrs. Mitchell, I really am sorry about the dress. I'll make it right somehow. Please call me Grace. And forget about the dress. Catherine has 14 others just like it. Grace glanced at the catering setup. Rodriguez Events. I've heard wonderful things about your company. You catered the Lopez wedding last month, didn't you? Emma blinked in surprise. Yes, I did. How did you know? My friend Maria Lopez hasn't stopped talking about your mango chili shrimp appetizers, Grace said with a twinkle in her eye. She says they were the best thing she's ever tasted. Coming from Maria, that's high praise. She's quite the food critic. Despite the awful situation, Emma felt a flutter of pride. Thank you. That means a lot. Tell me, Emma, Grace said, her expression becoming more serious. How did you build your business? Maria mentioned you started very young. Emma wasn't sure why this woman was asking, but something about Grace's genuine interest made her want to answer honestly. My parents died when I was 14, Emma said quietly. Car accident. I went to live with my aunt, but she had 4 kids of her own and not much money. I started cooking for neighbors to help pay my way. By the time I was 18, I had enough clients to start a real business. Grace nodded thoughtfully. You built something real through determination and skill. That's admirable. My late husband started with nothing too. He would have liked you. Grace, there you are. Catherine had returned, her dress now covered by an elegant shawl. Blake was with her, and both of them looked displeased to see Grace still talking with Emma. Mother has decided not to press charges or demand removal, Blake said stiffly, as if this was an enormous act of generosity. However, we expect full compensation for the dress and a written apology. Blake, stop acting like a pompous fool, Grace said sharply. Emma has already apologized, which is more than Catherine deserved after the way she behaved. Grandmother. Blake looked genuinely shocked. Mother was the victim here. Your mother was rude to someone doing their job, Grace corrected, and you enabled her bad behavior instead of being a gentleman. Your father would be disappointed. Blake's face reddened, and for a moment, Emma almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Now, Emma, Grace continued, turning back to her. My 85th birthday party is in 3 weeks. I'd like to hire Rodriguez Events to cater it. Are you available? Emma's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. After everything that just occurred, Grace Mitchell wanted to hire her? Grandmother, you can't be serious, Blake protested. After what just happened? I'm completely serious, Grace replied. Emma is clearly talented, professional, and most importantly, she has character. Those qualities are rare in our world, Blake. You do well to recognize that. Catherine made a sound of disgust. Grace, this is absurd. The girl is completely unsuitable for our family events. It's my party, Catherine, not yours, Grace said firmly. Emma, I'll have my assistant call you next week to discuss details. I trust you can create something special. Emma found her voice finally. Yes, ma'am. I mean, Grace. Thank you. I promise you won't regret this. I'm certain I won't, Grace smiled. Unlike some people, I'm an excellent judge of character. As Grace walked away toward the hotel entrance, Catherine turned to Blake with barely contained fury. You need to talk your grandmother out of this ridiculous idea. We cannot have that woman at family events. Do you understand? Blake was staring after his grandmother, then shifted his gaze to Emma. For the first time, he seemed to really see her as a person rather than an obstacle. Emma held his stare, refusing to look away first. I'll handle it, Mother, Blake said finally, though his tone was uncertain. After they left, Jessica rushed over to Emma, her eyes wide with excitement and concern. Oh my gosh, Emma, what has happened? Did Grace Mitchell really just hire us? Emma leaned against her catering truck, her legs suddenly feeling weak. I have no idea, Jess. I think I just made both a powerful enemy and a powerful ally in the same 5 minutes. Blake Harrison is gorgeous, though, Jessica said, wiggling her eyebrows. Did you see the way he was looking at you at the end? That wasn't just anger. Jessica, focus, Emma said, though she had noticed it too. Right now, we need to finish setting up this event perfectly. After the scene we just caused, we need to prove we're worth the drama. As Emma and her team worked through the evening, making sure every appetizer was perfect and every guest was satisfied, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just shifted in a direction she couldn't predict. Grace Mitchell's kindness had been unexpected, but the look in Blake Harrison's eyes at the end had been even more unsettling. It wasn't anger anymore. It was curiosity, maybe even respect. And Emma wasn't sure which was more dangerous to the carefully controlled life she had built for herself. What she didn't know was that across the ballroom, Blake Harrison was having similar thoughts, watching Emma work with her team. He had never met anyone who stood up to his mother like that, who had such fire and dignity in the face of humiliation. And for the first time in his carefully planned, controlled life, Blake Harrison was interested in someone his family would never approve of. The real question was what he was going to do about it. The morning surprise Emma arrived at her commercial kitchen at 5:30 in the morning, just like she did every day. The space was small but efficient, filled with industrial ovens, prep stations, and the comforting smell of fresh ingredients. This was her sanctuary, the place where she felt most in control. She was reviewing the day's orders when Jessica burst through the door, nearly dropping her coffee in excitement. "Emma, you need to see what's outside," Jessica said, practically bouncing on her toes. "Jess, it's too early for dramatics," Emma replied, not looking up from her clipboard. "We have the Henderson anniversary party today, and Mrs. Henderson specifically requested those complicated sugar flowers that take forever to make. Trust me, you want to see this," Jessica insisted, grabbing Emma's arm and dragging her toward the front entrance. When Emma stepped outside, she stopped dead in her tracks. Parked in front of her kitchen was Blake Harrison, leaning against his Bentley, holding a tray with multiple coffee cups and a large bag from the most expensive bakery in Miami. "What are you doing here?" Emma asked, crossing her arms defensively. Blake straightened up, and Emma noticed he looked different from the polished man at the gala. His hair was slightly messy, and he was wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt instead of a tuxedo. He actually looked human. "I wanted to apologize properly," Blake said, walking toward her. "Not just for the gala incident, but for how I treated you. My grandmother was right. I was acting like a pompous fool." "Your grandmother has good instincts," Emma replied, still wary. "But you didn't need to come all the way here. A phone call would have worked." "I don't think it would have," Blake said honestly. "You would have hung up on me. So I brought coffee for your entire staff and pastries as a peace offering. I called Maria Lopez and asked what your team likes." Emma felt her defenses wavering slightly. He had done his homework, and the gesture was thoughtful rather than just throwing money at the problem. "You talked to Maria Lopez about me?" "I talked to several of your former clients," Blake admitted. "Everyone says the same thing. You're talented, reliable, and treat your staff like family. I wanted to understand who you really are, not just the person I met during a stressful moment." Jessica, who had been watching from the doorway, called out, "Emma, I'm taking the coffee and pastries inside. The team is going to love this." She grabbed the items from Blake's hands before Emma could protest. Now it was just the two of them standing in the early morning light. Emma studied Blake's face, looking for any sign that this was just another rich person trying to manipulate her. "Why do you really care what I think of you?" Emma asked directly. "We don't travel in the same circles. After your grandmother's party, we'll probably never see each other again." Blake was quiet for a moment, then said something that surprised her. "Because in 32 years, you're the first person who's treated me like a regular human being instead of a walking bank account. You call me out on my bad behavior without caring about my last name or my money. That's rare in my world. Actually, it's non-existent." Emma felt a small crack forming in her defensive wall. "Your world sounds lonely." "It is," Blake said simply, "which is why I'm here at 5:30 in the morning, hoping you'll give me a chance to prove I'm not the arrogant jerk you met at the gala." "You were definitely an arrogant jerk," Emma said, but there was a hint of a smile on her face. "I know," Blake smiled back, "but I'm hoping to become a reformed arrogant jerk. I have to step up, right?" Despite herself, Emma laughed. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Let me help today," Blake said eagerly. "I'll do whatever you need. I can carry boxes, wash dishes, whatever. I want to understand your world the way you had to deal with mine at the gala." Emma raised an eyebrow. "You want to work in a commercial kitchen? Have you ever done manual labor in your life?" "I rode crew at Harvard," Blake offered hopefully. "That's not the same thing," Emma said, but she was considering the idea. Having Blake Harrison wash dishes in her kitchen would certainly be entertaining. "Fine, you can help today, but if you slow us down or complain even once, you're out." "Deal." "Deal." Blake extended his hand, and when Emma shook it, she felt that same strange spark she had felt at the gala. Learning her world 3 hours later, Emma was trying very hard not to laugh as Blake struggled to julienne vegetables at her prep station. His technique was terrible, and half the carrots were uneven chunks rather than elegant strips. "These don't look right," Blake said, frowning at his work. "How do you make them all the same size?" "Practice," Emma said, moving to stand beside him. "Here, hold a knife like this." The rocking motion helps you maintain control and consistency. She guided his hand, showing him the proper technique. Blake was a quick learner, and after a few attempts, his cuts started improving. "You're very patient," Blake observed. "I expected you to kick me out after my first disaster." "I told you I'd kick you out if you complained," Emma corrected. "You haven't complained. You're actually trying, which is more than I expected from someone who probably has people doing everything for him." "I do have people," Blake admitted. "A housekeeper, a driver, an assistant who manages my schedule. I never really thought about how much I rely on others until I came here and couldn't even julienne a carrot properly." Emma moved to her main cooking station, where she was preparing a complex sauce for the Henderson party. Blake watched her work with obvious fascination. "How did you learn all this?" Blake asked. "Did you go to culinary school?" "I couldn't afford culinary school," Emma said, stirring the sauce with practiced precision. "I learned from my mother before she died. She was an amazing cook. After she passed, I watched cooking shows, read books, experimented constantly. Every mistake taught me something new." "Your mother would be proud of what you've built," Blake said quietly. Emma felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The rest of the morning passed in a surprisingly comfortable rhythm. Blake proved to be genuinely helpful once he understood the systems Emma had put in place. He listened to instructions, asked smart questions, and didn't complain when he accidentally burned himself on a hot pan. Jessica pulled Emma aside during their lunch break. "Okay, I have to say it. Blake Harrison is not what I expected. He's actually kind of sweet when he's not being a rich snob." "Don't get any ideas," Emma warned. "This is just him making amends. After today, he'll go back to his mansions and board meetings." "I don't know," Jessica said, watching Blake laugh at something one of their prep cooks was saying. "He looks pretty comfortable here." And Emma, "The way he watches you when you're cooking? That's not just guilt. That's something else." Emma refused to acknowledge the flutter in her stomach. She had worked too hard to build her business to let some billionaire distract her, no matter how genuine he seemed. The threat that evening, as Emma was closing up the kitchen after a successful Henderson party, her phone rang. It was an unknown number, but something told her to answer. "Emma Rodriguez," a cold, familiar voice asked. "Mrs. Harrison," Emma said, her body tensing. "How did you get my number?" "I have ways of getting anything I want," Catherine replied smoothly. "I'm calling to make something very clear. My son's little guilt project needs to end. Blake has responsibilities that don't include playing in kitchens with the help. With all due respect, Mrs. Harrison, what your son does with his time is his business, not mine," Emma said, keeping her voice professional despite her anger. "Everything my son does is my business." Catherine's voice turned sharp as ice. "Blake is the CEO of Harrison Global Industries. He's set to merge with the Wellington Corporation next month, a deal worth $3 billion. He doesn't have time for distractions like you." "I'm not a distraction," Emma said firmly. "I'm a business owner who hired your son to do manual labor for one day as an apology. That's all." "Is it?" Catherine's laugh was harsh. "I've seen the way he looks at you, the way he talks about you. Blake has dated appropriate women from appropriate families his entire life. I will not allow some nobody caterer to derail his future." Emma felt her temper rising. "Mrs. Harrison, I don't know what you think is happening, but your son and I barely know each other. Even if we did become friends, that's not your decision to make." "Everything regarding my son is my decision," Catherine said coldly. "Let me be clear, Miss Rodriguez. If you continue seeing Blake, I will make sure every venue in Miami knows that Rodriguez Events is unreliable. I will spread word that your food made guests sick. I will destroy every contact and connection you've worked so hard to build. Your little business will be finished within a month." Emma's hand tightened on the phone. "You would lie and destroy someone's livelihood just to control your adult son?" "I would do anything to protect my family's legacy," Catherine replied without hesitation. "Blake is engaged to marry Amanda Wellington, though he doesn't know it yet. The merger requires a family alliance, and you are in the way of that future. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Grace and cancel her party. You're going to tell Blake you're not interested in his friendship, and you're going to disappear from our lives completely." "And if I don't?" Emma asked, though her heart was pounding. Then I'll start making calls tomorrow, Catherine said simply. Your choice, Miss Rodriguez. Your business or my son. You have 24 hours to decide. The line went dead, leaving Emma staring at her phone in disbelief. She had known Catherine Harrison didn't like her, but this level of vindictive control was something else entirely. Emma? What's wrong? Blake's voice startled her. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, still wearing the apron he'd borrowed that morning. I thought you left hours ago, Emma said, quickly wiping her eyes. I was helping Jessica load the delivery van, Blake said, walking toward her with concern on his face. Emma, what happened? You look upset. Emma wanted to tell him everything, to explain his mother's threats and ultimatum. But looking at Blake's genuine worry, she realized that telling him would put him in an impossible position between his family and someone he barely knew. Nothing, Emma lied, forcing a smile. Just tired. It's been a long day. Blake studied her face, clearly not believing her. Emma, I've spent 12 hours watching you handle a million things without breaking a sweat. This isn't tired. This is something else. Before Emma could respond, Blake's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and sighed. It's my mother. I need to take this. He stepped outside, and Emma could hear his voice through the door, respectful but strained. When he came back in, his expression was troubled. I have to go, Blake said reluctantly. Family emergency. But Emma, can we talk tomorrow? I'd like to continue helping here if you'll let me. Blake, Emma started, knowing she should end this now before Catherine made good on her threats. But the hopeful look on his face stopped her. Tomorrow is fine. Same time, Blake smiled, and Emma noticed how it transformed his entire face. Thank you for today, Emma. I'll learn more in 12 hours here than I have in months of board meetings. After he left, Jessica emerged from the storage room where she'd been pretending not to eavesdrop. You're in trouble, aren't you? I heard you on the phone earlier. Catherine Harrison just threatened to destroy the business if I don't stay away from Blake, Emma said, sinking into a chair. She wants him to marry someone from his world for some business merger. That witch, Jessica exclaimed. Emma, you have to tell Blake. He deserves to know what his mother is doing. And then what? Emma asked tiredly. He chooses between his family business and a woman he's known for 3 days? That's not fair to him, Jess. Besides, his mother is right about one thing. Blake and I are from completely different worlds. This was never going to work anyway. But you like him, Jessica said gently. I can see it. And more importantly, he likes you. That doesn't happen often, Emma. You haven't dated anyone seriously since college. Because I've been building a business, Emma protested. I don't have time for relationships, especially not with complicated billionaires whose mothers threaten to destroy everything I've worked for. Jessica sat down beside her. So what are you going to do? Emma thought about Catherine's cold voice, about the years she'd spent building Rodriguez events from nothing, about the 12 employees who depended on her for their livelihoods. Then she thought about Blake's smile when he finally mastered julienning vegetables, about the way he listened when she explained her techniques, about how natural it felt working beside him. I don't know, Emma admitted, but I have 24 hours to figure it out. Grace's wisdom. The next morning, Emma was surprised to receive a phone call from Grace Mitchell herself. Emma, dear, I hope I'm not calling too early. Grace's warm voice was a stark contrast to Catherine's coldness from the night before. Not at all, Grace, Emma said. I'm always up early. How can I help you? I was hoping you could come to my house this afternoon to discuss the party menu, Grace said. But honestly, that's just an excuse. I wanted to talk to you privately about my grandson. Emma's heart sank. Did Mrs. Harrison tell you to call me? Catherine? Hibbins, no, gracias left. That woman has been trying to control Blake's life since the day he was born. No, I'm calling because I saw how Blake looked at you at the gala, and I heard he spent yesterday working in your kitchen. That's very unlike him. Grace, I don't want to cause problems in your family, Emma said carefully. The problems in my family existed long before you arrived, Grace replied gently. Catherine has been trying to mold Blake into a replica of his father, my son, who died when Blake was 12. She's so afraid of losing control that she's suffocating the life out of him. But yesterday, when Blake called me, he sounded happy for the first time in years. He talked about learning to julienne vegetables like it was the most exciting thing he'd ever done. Emma couldn't help but smile at the memory. He was terrible at it initially. I'm sure he was, Grace chuckled. Blake has had everything handed to him his entire life. Having to actually learn something through failure is probably revolutionary. Emma, would you come talk with me? I promise I'm not trying to interfere. I just want to share some perspective. 2 hours later, Emma found herself in Grace Mitchell's beautiful home in Coral Gables. The house was elegant but comfortable, filled with family photos and warm lighting that made it feel like an actual home rather than a showpiece. Grace led her to a sunny breakfast room overlooking a garden. I hope you don't mind, but I made tea. It's a habit from my late husband. He was British and insisted on proper afternoon tea. It's lovely, Emma said, accepting a delicate china cup. Thank you for inviting me. Grace settled into her chair and studied Emma with those sharp, intelligent eyes. Catherine called you last night, didn't she? Threatened to destroy your business if you continued seeing Blake. Emma nearly dropped her teacup. How did you know? Because it's exactly what she did to the last girl Blake showed interest in, Grace said sadly. That was 5 years ago. The girl was a teacher, lovely person, genuinely cared about Blake. Catherine manufactured a scandal about her, got her fired from her school, and by the time Blake found out the truth, the girl wanted nothing to do with him or our family. Blake never forgave Catherine, and he hasn't brought anyone home since. I'm sorry, Emma said quietly. That's awful. It was Grace agreed. But Emma, I'm telling you this because I don't want history to repeat itself. Blake needs someone like you in his life. Someone real, someone who sees him as a person rather than a bank account. And I think you need someone like him too. Grace, I appreciate what you're saying, but your daughter-in-law has the power to destroy everything I've built, Emma said. I have employees who depend on me. I can't risk their livelihoods for a relationship that might not even work out. What if it does work out? Grace asked gently. What if Blake is the person you're meant to build a life with? Are you going to let Catherine's fear and control rob you both of that possibility? Emma set down her teacup, her hand shaking slightly. I don't know how to fight someone like her. She has money, power, connections. I'm just a caterer trying to keep her business running. You're not just anything, Grace said firmly. You're a woman who built a successful company from nothing. You're a woman who stood up to my daughter-in-law at the gala when most people would have cowered. You have more strength than you realize, Emma. But is it enough? Emma asked, voicing her deepest fear. Grace reached across the table and took Emma's hand. Let me tell you something about my late husband, Emma. When we met, I was a secretary and he was the son of a wealthy family. His mother, Blake's great-grandmother, did everything she could to break us apart. She threatened me, bribed me, even tried to have me deported back to Ireland where my family was from. What did you do? Emma asked, captivated by the story. I called her bluff, Grace smiled. I told my husband, Blake's grandfather, everything she was doing, and he stood by me. He chose love over his mother's approval, and we built a beautiful life together. We had 52 wonderful years before he passed away. Those years were worth fighting for, Emma. But what if Blake doesn't choose me? Emma voiced the question that terrified her. What if his mother is right, and I'm just a distraction from his real life? Then you'll know that wasn't meant to be, Grace said honestly. But Emma, don't you think Blake deserves the chance to make that choice himself? Don't let Catherine decide his future for him. Before Emma could respond, they heard the front door open and Blake's voice calling out. Grandmother? Your assistant said you were home. In the breakfast room, dear, Grace called back, giving Emma a knowing look. Blake appeared in the doorway, and his face lit up when he saw Emma. Emma, I didn't know you'd be here. Is everything okay? I invited Emma to discuss the party menu, Grace said smoothly. But now that you're here, perhaps you could drive her back to her kitchen? I'm sure she has work to do. Of course, Blake said eagerly. Emma, do you have time for a quick drive? There's something I wanted to show you. Emma looked at Grace, who gave her an encouraging nod. Okay, Emma said, standing up. But I really do need to get back soon. As they left, Grace called after them. Blake, take Emma to your father's spot. I think she'd appreciate it. In Blake's car, Emma was quiet as they drove through Miami streets. Blake kept glancing at her with concern. You've been different since last night, Blake said finally. Did something happen after I left? Emma took a deep breath. This was it, the moment where she had to decide whether to trust him with the truth or protect herself by pushing him away. Blake, can I ask you something? Emma said instead of answering directly. Anything, Blake replied. Why are you really spending time with me? Emma asked. Your grandmother said you haven't dated anyone in 5 years. You have responsibilities, a company to run, a life completely separate from mine. So why are you here? Blake was quiet for a long moment, then pulled the car over to the side of the road. He turned to face her fully. Do you want the honest answer? Blake asked. Always, Emma said. Because for the first time in my life, I'm excited to wake up in the morning, Blake said simply. Because yesterday, learning to cook in your kitchen, talking to your staff, watching you create something beautiful out of raw ingredients, I felt more alive than I have in years. Because, Emma, when I'm with you, I remember who I wanted to be before my father died and my mother turned me into a corporate robot. Emma felt tears forming in her eyes. Blake, your mother called me last night. Blake's expression darkened immediately. What did she say? She threatened to destroy my business if I don't stay away from you, Emma said, the words tumbling out. She said you're supposed to marry someone named Amanda Wellington for some merger. She said I'm a distraction from your real life and responsibilities. She gave me 24 hours to disappear from your life, or she'd make sure every client in Miami thinks Rodriguez Events is unreliable. Blake's hands clenched on the steering wheel, his jaw tight with fury. That's why you were upset last night. Emma, why didn't you tell me immediately? Because I didn't want to put you in an impossible position, Emma said. Blake, your mother is right about some things. We are from different worlds. You have obligations I can't even imagine. Maybe it's better if we just stop this before it goes any further. No, Blake said firmly. Absolutely not. Emma, my mother has controlled every aspect of my life since my father died. She chose my schools, my major, my career path, even my hobbies. I let her do it because I thought that's what being a good son meant. But she doesn't get to choose who I care about. That's where I draw the line. But the merger, Emma protested. Your business. The Wellington merger is my mother's obsession, not mine, Blake said. Yes, it would be profitable, but Harrison Global doesn't need it to survive. And Amanda Wellington is a nice person, but I've known her since we were kids, and there's zero chemistry between us. My mother wants that marriage because it gives her more control over both companies. Blake, think about what you're saying, Emma urged. You're willing to risk your relationship with your mother, potentially damage your business, for someone you've known less than a week? Blake reached over and took Emma's hand. Emma, I've spent my entire life doing what I was supposed to do. Dating women my mother approved of, making business decisions based on her advice, living in a house she decorated, driving a car she chose. And you know what? I've been miserable. Then I met you, and you called me an arrogant jerk in an expensive suit, and something in me woke up. Emma laughed through her tears. I did call you that, didn't I? And you were right. Blake smiled. Emma, I'm not saying we're going to get married tomorrow. I'm not even saying we're officially dating yet. What I'm saying is that I want the chance to find out if this connection we have is real. Don't let my mother's threats steal that from us. Please. Emma looked at Blake's earnest face, at the hope and determination in his eyes. She thought about Grace's story, about fighting for 52 years of happiness. She thought about her mother's advice before she died. Emma, don't be so afraid of failing that you never try to fly. Okay, Emma said finally. Okay, we'll see where this goes. But Blake, I need you to understand something. I'm not going to change who I am or pretend to be someone I'm not a fit into your world. If this is going to work, you have to accept that I'm a caterer from a working-class background who speaks her mind and doesn't care about impressing society people. That's exactly who I want you to be, Blake said, lifting her hand to his lips and kissing it gently. Emma Rodriguez, authentically and unapologetically yourself. And you need to deal with your mother, Emma added. I won't be the reason you have a broken relationship with your family, but I also won't let her bully me. So you need to set boundaries with her. I will, Blake promised. Starting today. Come on, I want to show you something. He drove them to a small park overlooking Biscayne Bay. Blake led Emma to a bench with a perfect view of the water. This was my dad's favorite spot, Blake said, sitting down. When I was a kid, he'd bring me here whenever I was stressed about school or anything else. He'd say that looking at the water reminded him that there was a whole world beyond boardrooms and business deals. He sounds like he was a good man, Emma said softly. He was. Blake smiled sadly. He would have liked you. He always said the most important thing in life wasn't money or success. It was finding someone who made you want to be better. My mother forgot that after he died. She became obsessed with preserving his legacy through the company, like that's all he was. Emma leaned against Blake's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the boats on the water. Emma, Blake said after a while, I know we're taking this slow, but I need you to know something. I'm all in. Whatever my mother throws at us, whatever challenges come up, I'm not going anywhere. You're worth fighting for. Emma turned to look at him, and before she could overthink it, she kissed him. It was gentle and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they broke apart, Blake was smiling. I was hoping you'd do that. Don't get used to it, Emma teased. You still have to earn your way into my good graces. One kiss doesn't make up for the arrogant jerk behavior. Then I guess I'll have to keep working in your kitchen, Blake grinned. Though fair warning, Jessica has been teaching me your secret recipes behind your back. She thinks I need to understand the business from the inside. Jessica is getting a raise, Emma laughed. And you're getting assigned to dishwashing duty tomorrow. Whatever it takes, Blake said, pulling her close for another kiss. As the sun set over Biscayne Bay, Emma allowed herself to feel hope. Yes, there would be challenges ahead. Catherine Harrison wasn't going to give up easily, and the differences between their worlds were very real. But sitting here with Blake, feeling more understood and valued than she had in years, Emma decided that some things were worth fighting for. Tomorrow, they would face Catherine together. Tonight, they would simply be two people who found something unexpected and precious in each other. And that, Emma thought, was enough, the breaking point. 2 weeks after Blake and Emma decided to see where their relationship could go, Catherine Harrison made her move. Emma arrived at her kitchen to find 12 angry emails from venues she regularly partnered with. Each one claimed they had received complaints about Rodriguez events, ranging from food poisoning allegations to accusations of unprofessional behavior. None of it was true, but the damage was immediate. Emma, the Madison Hotel, just called, Jessica said, her face pale. They're canceling our contract for the Jefferson wedding next month. That's a $30,000 job. Let me guess, Emma said, her voice tight with controlled fury. They received concerning reports about our company. How did you know? Jessica asked. Because Catherine Harrison warned me this would happen, Emma replied, scrolling through the cancellation emails. She's making good on her threat. Blake arrived an hour later to find Emma's stress baking, which she only did when things were truly bad. The kitchen was filled with trays of cookies, cakes, and pastries that Emma was creating with almost manic energy. Emma, we need to talk, Blake said, taking the mixing bowl from her hands gently. I just got a call from my lawyer. My mother has been spreading rumors about Rodriguez events for the past week. She's contacted every major venue and catering client in Miami. I know, Emma said, her voice breaking. I've lost 4 contracts this morning alone. Blake, she's destroying everything I've built. Every client who's canceling mentions the same concerns, word for word. This is coordinated. Blake pulled Emma into his arms as she finally let the tears fall. I'm so sorry. I should have dealt with my mother sooner. I thought she would back down once she realized I was serious about you. It's not your fault, Emma said, wiping her eyes. I knew this was coming. Part of me was just hoping she'd have some shred of decency. She doesn't, Blake said grimly. But Emma, I'm not going to let her win. I've been building a case with my lawyers. What my mother is doing is defamation. We can sue her, force her to retract everything. That could take months, maybe years, Emma said, pulling away to look at him. Blake, I don't have months. My employees need paychecks. I have suppliers who need to be paid. Even if we win eventually, Rodriguez events will be finished by then. Then I'll cover your expenses until we get this resolved, Blake said immediately. Emma, money isn't a problem. It is for me, Emma said firmly. Blake, I can't take your money. That makes me exactly what your mother accused me of being, a gold digger who's using you for financial gain. That's ridiculous, Blake protested. You built this business from nothing. You're being attacked because of me. The least I can do is help you survive it. Emma shook her head. If I take your money, your mother wins. She gets to say I was always after your wealth. Blake, I need to fight this on my own terms in my own way. Before Blake could argue further, Emma's phone rang. It was Grace Mitchell. Emma, dear, I just heard what Catherine is doing. Grace's voice was tight with anger. That woman has gone too far this time. Grace, I appreciate your concern, but I don't want to put you in the middle of this family conflict, Emma said. I'm already in the middle of it, Grace replied. Emma, I want you to know that I'm calling every person in my social circle today. Catherine may have connections, but I have friendships built over 60 years. By tonight, everyone who matters in Miami will know that Rodriguez Events is the victim of a vindictive smear campaign. Grace, you don't have to do that, Emma protested, though hope was flickering in her chest. Yes, I do, Grace said firmly. Catherine is my daughter-in-law, but what she's doing is wrong. Blake deserves to choose his own path, and you deserve better than to be destroyed for falling in love with my grandson. After Emma hung up, Blake was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Did my grandmother just say you fell in love with me? Blake asked softly. Emma felt her cheeks burn. She's making assumptions. We've only been dating for 2 weeks. Emma, Blake stepped closer. Look at me. Emma met his eyes, and the intensity there made her breath catch. I'm in love with you, Blake said simply. I know it's fast and maybe crazy, but Emma, I've never felt this way about anyone. You make me want to be better, braver, more honest. You make me remember who I wanted to be before my mother turned me into a corporate puppet. I love you. Emma felt tears forming again, but this time they were happy tears. I love you too, she whispered. I try not to because it's complicated and scary, but Blake, I can't imagine my life without you anymore. Blake kissed her then, deeply and thoroughly, until Jessica cleared her throat loudly from across the kitchen. Sorry to interrupt this romantic moment, Jessica said, grinning despite the crisis. But Emma, you need to see this. She held up her phone, showing Blake's social media accounts. Blake had posted a long statement defending Emma and Rodriguez Events, including documentation proving all of Catherine's accusations were false. He had also announced he was stepping down as CEO of Harrison Global Industries. Blake, what did you do? Emma breathed, reading the post. What I should have done 2 weeks ago, Blake replied. I chose you, Emma. I chose us over my mother's control and a company that was never really mine anyway. Harrison Global was my father's dream, not mine. It's time I figured out what my dream actually is. But your family business, Emma protested. Blake, you can't just walk away from everything. I'm not walking away from everything, Blake corrected. I'm walking away from my mother's version of my life. Emma, I've been thinking about this since the day I spent working in your kitchen. I want to build something real, something that helps people the way you help your community. I want to start an investment firm that supports small businesses instead of swallowing them up. That's a beautiful dream, Emma said, touching his face gently. But Blake, make sure you're doing this for you, not just for me. I don't want you to resent me 5 years from now when you realize what you gave up. The only thing I'd regret is not fighting for us, Blake said firmly. His phone began ringing incessantly. Blake glanced at the screen and sighed. It's my mother. I need to deal with this once and for all. Emma, will you come with me? I want you there when I talk to her. Emma hesitated, then nodded. Okay. But Blake, whatever happens, please don't let this destroy your family completely. I know your mother has done terrible things, but she's still your mother. She stopped acting like my mother the day she threatened you, Blake said coldly.